What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham, Jason Matthews, break down all the original content they watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the December 11th, 2023 edition of Raw Talk. Matt Camp, Megan Murray in the studio, opening up the episode, running down the biggest headlines from Monday's Raw. A very good show overall, I thought. Recapping the Miz and DIY tag team win over Imperium. We hear from Miz afterward backstage with Jackie Redmond, I believe. And Miz says, everything that he kind of has happened to him in this arena in Cleveland. He runs down it from being fired, not legitimately, but in storyline. Being fired in that building, being thrown out of the building, from being embarrassed in front of his parents by Randy Orton, I believe, about 10 years ago. I remember that as well. His father being attacked by Shane McMahon in that building back at Fastlane 2019, if I'm not mistaken. He remembers everything, and he also does not think he's ever won in that building before, which is worth a check. He might be right. I mean, he would remember. He also might be telling the story that he's never won in that arena until tonight. I would be surprised because Miz has been in this company for so fucking long, but he might be right, honestly. He says that he's always wanted that reception from the audience, and that set a new tone for him, so he's gunning for Gunther's Intercontinental Championship. I don't know if this cements the babyface turn for The Miz or if it's only temporary with his feud with Gunther over the Intercontinental Championship. It might only be a temporary thing, but I would be all for, as I've said before, a babyface Miz on Raw. I think he plays the role well. He's proven that in the past, and I think he's the perfect foil right now for Gunther heading into the Royal Rumble. They didn't say when that match is happening. I would assume it's happening on the Day 1 show. It's not happening next week. Next week, we're getting 2 tag team title matches for the women's tag titles and the men's tag titles. So it could be happening on the show in 2 weeks. That's possible on the show there. Actually, that's not true, because in 2 weeks, I think it's Christmas, right? The 11th or the 18th and then the 25th. So I don't think it's happening on the Christmas edition. It probably will happen on that Day 1 edition, as it probably should, which they're stacking up that show. Also, the World Heavyweight Championship match, which we'll get to in a second. But they also recap these, speaking of the women's tag titles, the Katana Chance and Kaden Carter tag team win over Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. We hear from Carter and Chance afterward backstage with Byron Saxton. Carter says they've been under the electric sky as of late, with whatever the fuck that means. Katana Chance mentions they are the longest reigning NXT Women's Tag Team Champions of all time, and Carter says those tag titles are coming to them. Very generic promo from these two. I like the team, but as I've mentioned before, I just think the whole party thing is cringy as hell. I don't like the gimmick. They're very good in the ring. I'm glad they're getting an opportunity. The women's tag team title is desolate. They have a handful of women's teams, but they're not really doing much with these teams aside from Chelsea and Piper, who feel like they're kind of over because Chelsea plays a role so well. The other women, not so much. This felt like any other promo we've heard from Carter and Chance on this show for the past 3 or 4 months. Even right down to mentioning they are the former longest reigning NXT Women's Tag Team Champions of all time. They mentioned that as well, which I feel like I've heard in every fucking interview they've done on this show for the past 3 or 4 months, like I said. Anyway, so back to the show, back to Raw Talk here. They replay the CM Punk Rollins segment, which was a stellar segment, easily my favorite part of the show, as it was for everyone else, I would imagine. Amazing stuff. Matt Camp back in the studio mentioning their history. In storyline, really only mentioning the fact that Punk ushered in the Shield 10 years ago, feuded with the Shield 10 years ago. He ushered in the Shield 11 years ago, really. Also mentioning their run-in from NXT from 2012. You gotta go further back than that, or a bit more recent, because a lot of the stuff that Rollins was talking about was all the trash talking Punk had done about the business and WWE specifically, and Rollins even himself in the past couple of years, in the last recent years, online and in interviews and stuff like that, which Matt Camp did not mention here. I don't know if they want to go that far, but he did say that CM Punk, he did reference the line from Punk's promo 2 weeks ago, "I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make money." I appreciated Cam saying that because, again, I don't think they made reference to that when they first broke down the promo 2 weeks ago. And that was really the key line from that promo that wasn't even on the mic 2 weeks ago. And he said that at this point in his career for Punk, it's not really about making friends. He doesn't have to worry about making friends. He might make friends along the way, and people like Kofi Kingston, who we saw interact with on Raw last night. But he's really only back to win the main event of WrestleMania, win the Royal Rumble, and get back a world championship. So, hey, can't blame the guy. I thought that Punk Rollins stuff was great. Only scratching the surface, I think, of what those two could do together on the mic heading into the inevitable WrestleMania match, hopefully for the World Heavyweight Championship. Speaking of the World Heavyweight Championship, we hear from McIntyre after they recap the McIntyre win over Jey Uso at the beginning of Raw. McIntyre says that he'll never be done with Jey Uso, really, but now it's time for him to finish his story. He doesn't care about Cody's story. He doesn't care about CM Punk finishing his story. He's all about getting back the World Heavyweight Championship and winning the championship in front of fans this time, unlike back in 2020 when he won the WWE Championship twice in an empty arena, first at the Performance Center and then at the Thunderdome in 2020. So back in the studio, they hype up Rollins and McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship on the Day 1 edition of Raw on January 1st. McCam says that it was ironic how McIntyre brought up that this time around people will be actually in the building for his big title win. But unlike 3 years ago, had they been there for WrestleMania 36 when he won the WWE Championship from Brock Lesnar, they will not be cheering him because he's a heel this time around. So he kind of gets what he wants, but not really, which I thought was cool. A nice little attention to detail there. And then to close out, they recap the main event with Cody Rhodes getting the win over Shinsuke Nakamura by disqualification. McCam says Nakamura got what he wanted for now. He accomplished what he set out to do for now, provided that Cody Rhodes doesn't come back looking for a fight again from Shinsuke, which he will, so probably not actually. Likely leading to a rematch at some point down the road, probably on the Day 1 edition of Raw if I had to take a guess. So then to close out the show again, they hype out the men's tag team title match for next week, the Judgment Day defending against the Creed brothers, and plug Mick Foley and Drew McIntyre for the bump coming up on Wednesday. Thank you guys for checking out my review of this edition of Raw Talk. Pretty solid stuff here, hearing from Drew, Carter, Chance, and The Miz, setting up the next week's edition of Raw, the Day 1 edition of Raw. So we really only have one live edition of Raw left in the year, because I don't think they're doing a Christmas show, unless they tape 2 Raws next week, which I don't think they are, which would be fucking hell for anyone in the building on that night to tape 2 3-hour Raws. God bless. I don't think they're doing that. I think they're just going to do a best of edition, or a best of the year edition, whatever, for the Christmas show on December 25th. Unlike back in 2017 when they did have a live show on Christmas, which was fucking dumb. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. Have an awesome one. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.